Oh, oh, Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayani Amba Tvamanusandanami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshini Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Devyai Stavai Vedai Sangha Padakramo Panishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavasthita tadgatena manasa Pashyanti yam yoginaha Yasyantam na vidutsura suraganaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. We'll start with a story today. Everybody I know loves stories. So this happened around 1920 in India, about 100 years ago. So there was this young boy who was about 10 years old and comes home from school and tells his mother, "Mother, we learned something new in school today." So she said, "What?" He said, "I learned that the earth is round." So I think his teacher must have told him. This was 100 years ago. And the mother started laughing. She says, "Earth is round? What are you talking about? I walk to temple every day. I don't fall off. It's not round. I do all my housework. If the earth was round, I would slip off. I would trip. This is all just useless theory." He says, "No, mother, I'm telling you, my teacher said the earth is round." She didn't believe him. And even when he grew up and he became a college professor of English, she used to tell her friends, "See, my son, he's an English professor, and he still believes the earth is round." So for her, there was no need to know whether the earth is flat or round. She could go about her daily activities, do her housework, go to the temple, take care of her children. But if somebody wanted to go to space or calculate the distance between New York and London, the flying time, you have to know the earth is round, you have to know the earth is revolving for all scientific experiments, for weather predictions. So for higher purposes, you need to know the earth is round. You cannot go around with the idea earth is flat. There used to be a flat earth society in the United States that for many, many years disbelieved the experts that the earth is round, just as many people disbelieve the experts that they should get the vaccine. But that's a different story. I won't get into that. So, So the point is that we live in the same ignorance as that lady who believed that the earth was flat. And for the last 300 years, mankind has lived with the ignorance, or maybe thousands of years, but in the last 300 years, we have put a lot of effort because we believe I am the body and human beings are this body, visible body. So all the efforts of science and industry and economics and politics is meant to improve conditions because we are this body. And so we have come up with, computers and space travel and fast airplanes and air conditioning and all good, nice cars, roads, everything to make our life comfortable. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're not saying that scientific progress has been detrimental to our life. It has tremendously helped. Our standard of life is much better than it was, say, 50 years ago or 70 years ago. But Gurudev says standard of life has it improved standard of living. And there is a big difference in that. Because when we put all our efforts in this, that I am this body, mind, and intellect, body includes this mind and this intellect. And so we do a lot for physical comfort, to knowledge-wise. With a computer, I can find out what's happening anywhere in the world. Emotionally, we have all these psychologists, psychiatrists. So a lot of efforts are being carried out to improve man's physical, emotional, and intellectual status. But are we happy? If you think about it, are we happier than people were 50 years ago? Yes, we are comfortable. But we see there is a lot more violence, a lot more hatred, conflicts between different parties, between communities, between states. In India, we find this, conflict between states for water, conflicts between countries, even in Africa, between different tribes. There is so much violence, so much killing. So we find that problems are continuing to increase despite all efforts by scientists, by government, and why is that? Because of our ignorance, just as the lady was ignorance, and it didn't matter too much to her, but for advanced thinkers, they needed to know the earth was round. So similarly, for our day-to-day life, we don't need to know more than beyond I am this body. I get up in the morning, take care of my body, live a comfortable life. You say, my life is going fine. But when problems arise, when you need to go beyond, that's when the Bhagavad Gita comes into play. Because we find that no matter how much success we have achieved in the material world, we still are not happy. There is conflicts, there is stress, there is physical problems, emotional problems, intellectual problems. So there is an important aspect of our personality called the spirit, which science has not addressed, but which the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita will be addressing in detail, which we will be starting today, that what is my ignorance, what is this spirit, and what is the spiritual aspect of my personality? Because they say we are four: body, mind, intellect, and spirit or consciousness. And all our focus is on three, and we have forgotten the most important aspect of our personality, which is the spiritual personality. And that is what will be addressed in the Bhagavad Gita, especially the 13th chapter, which we will be starting today, talks at great detail about what is the spirit, what is matter, and also gives us the essence of the Upanishads. So it is a very beautiful chapter where the entire essence of the Upanishad, the Brahma Sutras, all the great texts are summarized by Bhagavan Sri Krishna and made in a way that you and I can understand. So that is the essence of this 13th chapter. That is the introduction to the 13th chapter. Also, we have talked many times before that the first 6 chapters talk about the individual called the Jiva and what are his duties with karma yoga and how he should work with others. And then 7th to 12th chapter talks about God, Ishvara. And Bhagavan Sri Krishna has gone into great detail about what is this imperishable Brahman in the 8th chapter. In the 7th, he talked about para and apara prakriti. And then in the 9th, 10th, and 11th, he talked more about upasana or bhakti. And in 12th was the summit or the highest expression of bhakti was given. So the idea being that one should do karma, one should have knowledge, and one should have bhakti. Having explained bhakti in great detail and the lakshanas of a bhakta, which we talked about last week, the 36 lakshanas, now Bhagavan Sri Krishna feels that it is time to go back because he has not forgotten that in the 7th and 8th chapter, maybe you and I have forgotten, but Bhagavan has not. So he said in the 7th and 8th chapter, I was talking about the imperishable Brahman, the highest reality. And that is something which is the thread in the entire Bhagavad Gita, starting from the 2nd chapter onward. Bhagavan Sri Krishna constantly, the undercurrent, just as in a music concert, there is a Shruti box, which, gives a little sound. So similarly, Bhagavan in the entire Bhagavad Gita, there is an underlying message that you are not this body, you are this spirit. And what is the nature of this spirit, which we call as Brahman or consciousness? So that will be explained to us in the 13th chapter, which we will start today. So in the 13th chapter, Atha Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Atha Trayodashodhyayaha.
Atha Trayodashodhyayaha.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Prakritim Purusham Chaiva.
Prakritim Purusham Chaiva.
Kshetram Kshetrajnam Evacha.
Kshetram Kshetragyameva cha.
Etad Veditumicchami.
Etat Veditumicchami.
Jnanam Jneyam Cha Keshava.
Jnanam Jneyam cha Keshava.
Yeah, you can please mute and we'll all chant together. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha
Om
Trayodashodhyayaha. Arjuna Uvacha. Prakritim Purusham Chaiva. Kshetram Kshetrajnam Evacha. Etad Veditumicchami. Jnanam Jneyam Cha Keshava. So Trayodashodhyayaha, the 13th chapter, begins with Arjuna's question. Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna said, what did he say? Prakriti. Prakritim Purusham. Prakriti and Purusha cha eva also. Kshetram Kshetrajnam. So what is Prakriti? What is Purusha? And what is Kshetram? And what is Kshetrajnam? Evacha. All this. Etat. All this. Etat Veditum. Veditum means I wish to know. I have a desire to know. Veditum Ichchami. So Bhagwan, I wish to know. I have a desire to know what is Prakriti, what is Purusha, what is Kshetra, what is Kshetrajnam. So 4. And then Jnanam Jneyam. What is knowledge and what is that to be known? And he's asking who? Keshava. He addresses Bhagavan Sri Krishna as Keshava. So, hey Keshava, I wish to know what is Prakriti, Purush, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetrajnam, Jnanam, and Nyayam. So 6 topics Arjuna would like us to address, or would like Bhagwan to address, and we all would be interested in knowing these 6 topics. So he addresses Bhagwan as Keshava. So Keshava, one meaning is who has beautiful curly hair. And Bhagwan had very beautiful hair. But another meaning of Keshava, you can split Keshava into Ka, Isha, and Va. So Ka, Isha, and Va, when it's combined, becomes Keshava. So Ka represents Brahmaji, the creator. Isha represents Bhagwan Shiva, the one who destroys, who puts an end to the universe. And Va represents Vishnu. So Ka, Brahmaji, Isha, Shiva, and Va, Vishnu. So Keshava represents Ishvara. So what they are saying is that the Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, had manifested on earth as Sri Krishna. So that's why he got the name Keshava, representing all 3 aspects of this. So these 6 topics Arjuna wants to know. Now, this particular shloka is not there in all commentaries of the Bhagavad Gita, in all volumes of the Bhagavad Gita. Some of them directly start with Bhagwan's answer, Idam Shariram Kaunteya, but some of them have this Arjuna's question. So in some volumes, it is 700 shlokas, in some it is 701. But Gurudev includes this. Shankaracharya ji in his commentary in the 7th century did not have this shloka. So why was this shloka put in? So one idea is that Arjuna did know these subjects because when he was growing up, Bhishma Pitama used to invite great scholars and Mahatmas to the court, and then the children would be educated by these. So Arjuna might have heard these words from these Mahatmas. And at the end of the 12th chapter, Bhagwan was so joyous having that beautiful chapter that he just paused in silence in that joy, supreme bliss, which all of us experience reading the 12th chapter. And then Arjuna found this silence. So he said, okay, let me throw in this question to fill the silence, because these words he had grown up with, but was not sure about it. Other commentators say that this was added by later acharyas because the topics in the 13th chapter are so diverse. Such a variety of topics are addressed by Bhagwan Sri Krishna, Prakriti, Purusha, Jnanam, Nyayam, Kshetra, Kshetrajna, that to connect all of them, this question of Arjuna was put in there. Well, for whatever purpose, whether it was there or not. But we find that this question is very helpful to us, because what this does, it ties the whole 13th chapter together, that there are 6 topics which are addressed in this 13th chapter. And these 6 topics are asked by Arjuna. So it is beneficial to us, and that's why we will use this particular shloka. So let us very briefly talk about these 6 topics. And then, of course, throughout the chapter, we'll go into more detail. So Prakriti is described as matter, as the creative force, which creates this whole universe. So matter. And so whatever we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think, experience, 5 elements and all the elements, not only of the visible world, but our thoughts, our emotions, they are also product of 5 elements. So with the subtle aspect of the 5 elements, the gross aspect is this visible body and the visible world. So Prakriti is that. And what is Purusha? Purusha is described as spirit, consciousness, the illumining principle, which gives life to everything that we see, because we see that this world consists of inert objects like rocks and stones, and then living objects like trees, birds, plants, fish, animals, and so on, and humans. So Purusha is the illumining principle, or the factor which gives life to Prakriti. So Prakriti and Purusha. Now the Sankhya Yoga believes that Prakriti and Purusha are two independent factors, and they both are equally important in creation, but Vedanta says that Purusha alone is important, and Purusha is the creator or the manifester, that in Purusha, Prakriti manifested. So that is the difference. Then what is Kshetra and Kshetrajna? That is the second question of Arjuna. Kshetram is described as the field. Field means this place where I am functioning. This entire universe is a field. Field is a place where I work, like a hockey field or a cricket field. You know, we play hockey or cricket or baseball. So this is where the human being plays, functions. Also, field is where I plant things, you know, like a crop, and where I get the results. So Kshetra is called the field, and Kshetrajna is the knower of the field, one who knows what is happening in my body, in this world, not only in this world, but what is happening in space, in other planets, you know, with telescopes and all that. So that is called the Kshetrajna. And Gurudev, in his commentary, very beautifully, he says that Kshetrajna has its existence only if Kshetra is there. So for example, a person riding a bike becomes a rider, person swimming becomes a swimmer, person driving a car becomes a driver. But suppose there is no car, there is no swimming pool, there is no bicycle, then what happens? The driver is no longer a driver or a swimmer. Then it becomes a driver himself, but without the entity of driver, without being called a driver. If I don't have a car, I cannot be called a driver. Then I am, that's it. At that moment, I am not a driver, I am not a bicycler, I am not a swimmer, because there is no bike, there is no car, there is no pool. I am by myself. So Kshetrajna has only existence as long as there is Kshetra to be known. When the Kshetra is dissolved, either in meditation, samadhi, or deep sleep, then Kshetrajna no longer becomes Kshetrajna, becomes only Jna. That is knowledge alone, not knowledge of anything, because there is nothing to be known. That is called Kshetrajna and Kshetra. So that is the second pair that Arjuna asks. And we'll go into more detail in all of these in the next few shlokas in the entire 13th chapter. And then the third pair Arjuna asks is Jnanam and Neyam. Jnanam we generally translate as knowledge, and Neyam means that which is to be known. But in the 13th chapter, Neyam is Brahman, that consciousness, which even though it is all pervading, even though it's illumining my presence and illumining everything in this universe, everything, all plants, birds, and even the rocks, inanimate objects have existence because of Brahman. But still that is not known to you and me. We always think of Brahman or God as some distant object sitting somewhere in Kailash or Vaikuntha or somewhere. And I have to worship God and know God, and which is good. You know, even Gurudev in this, those of you who are in this WhatsApp group on Gokul says that we all start with Dvaitam, that God is somebody different from me, that the teachings of Madhavacharya. Then you slowly progress to teaching of Vallabhacharya, which is Dvaitam to Dvaitam, it becomes Vishishta Advaitam, where I am part of the whole. First, God is separate from me, then I am a small part. That means God is this ocean, I am a drop, God is a sun, I am a little ray of sunlight. So slowly we progress from God is separate to God is whole and I am a part. But then we come to the teachings of Shankaracharya, where if we say God is everywhere, all pervading, how can I be separate from God? Not only that, God is partless. God cannot be divided. So I cannot be a part of something which cannot be parted, cannot be divided. So that knowledge is called jnanam. But in the 13th chapter, jnanam, the word is used for values, because a lot of values are given in the 13th chapter. Amanitvam, adambhitvam, etc. We'll be coming to that. So Bhagavan is saying that without practicing these good values, your mind, which is impure, our mind has so much impurity. But when we practice these values of love, compassion, and a lack of arrogance, and all those things, then our mind becomes pure. When I reduce kam, krodh, lobh, moh, madh, matsarya, all these anger, greed, jealousy, and so on, as I reduce them, my mind becomes pure. And in a pure mind, only this knowledge can take fruit. Because what happens is we are studying this knowledge, but we are not able to abide in this knowledge because of impurity of mind. So practicing these values in the 13th chapter is called jnanam. So through practicing these values, I get purity of mind. And when my mind is pure, then the knowledge becomes pakka, then it stays. Otherwise, I listen and then the knowledge goes in one ear, out the other, or I listen for an hour, I'm inspired, but then I go here and there and I forget. So that's why Bhagavan has very much emphasized practice of values throughout the Bhagavad Gita, in the 13th chapter, in the 12th chapter, in 3rd chapter, everywhere, 9th chapter, so much he has talked about values. So jnanam here refers to values, and neyam is the supreme Brahman consciousness. And they say the 13th chapter is a treat for scholars. Those who are scholars, Sanskrit scholars who have studied Darshan Shastra, who have studied philosophy, 13th chapter is a treat for them. Why? Because beautiful philosophy is given. All the various darshanas are addressed, the various philosophies and how they are combined. So it is a very beautiful chapter, but the teachings are of a subtle level, of a somewhat higher level. We'll talk about that. So that is why the 13th chapter is given a lot of importance, even though the number 13 is considered unlucky in the Western culture. But for us, the 13th chapter is probably one of the best chapters in the Bhagavad Gita as far as knowledge. Those who want knowledge, the highest knowledge of the Upanishads is covered in the 13th chapter. So this is the introduction and Arjuna's question. So now we'll see Bhagavan's answer. Shloka number 2. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Idam Shariram Kaunteya.
Idam Shariram Kaunteya.
Kshetramityabhidhiyate.
Kshetram Ityabhidhiyate.
Etad yo veti tam prahuhu.
Etat yo veti tam prahuhu.
Kshetrajna iti tadvidaha.
Kshetragya iti tadvidaha.
Together. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Idam shariram kaunteya. Kshetramityabhidhiyate. Etad yo veti tam prahuhu. Kshetrajna iti tadvidaha. So Shri Bhagavan Uvach, the Lord spoke. What did he say? Idam shariram, idam, this body. He has pointed out to his body or maybe to Arjuna's body, but this body, I think he points out to his own body. Idam shariram, this shariram, Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Why did he address him as Kaunteya? We'll talk about that. Idam shariram, O son of Kunti, Kshetram, iti abhidhiyate. Iti, in this way, this body is said to be Kshetram. Abhidhiyate is said, is described in this way. Iti means in this way, This body is said to be Kshetram. And who is Kshetrajna? So Bhagavan is addressing the 6 questions, but not in the order which Arjuna asked, in the order which he thinks will benefit us. So first he talks about Kshetram and Kshetrajnam. So he says, Idam Shariram Kaunteya Kshetram iti abhidhiyate. This body is said to be the Kshetram. And Etat, this Yo Veti, Yaha, one who knows this Kshetram, Tam Prahuhu. Prahuhu means it is said by who and what. So those who, the one who knows this Kshetram is called Kshetrajna. Iti, it is said by Tat Vidaha, by wise people, by knowers of this truth. So this body is Kshetram. We always think of field as something outside, but he says this body is the field, and the one who knows this body is called Kshetrajna. And who says that? Bhagavan does not take credit that I am saying it because I am Bhagavan Krishna. You have to believe it. Throughout in the Bhagavad Gita, he quotes different scholars. And he says that it has been said in the Upanishads, in the Brahma Sutra, and even he will say it in the 13th chapter. All these great masters have said it, and I am just repeating. So what he's doing is he's not taking credit that I'm giving you some original knowledge. It is knowledge which has come down from rishis, which I am giving it to you so that you can understand. He is summarizing this knowledge. So that's why he says, Tat Vidaha, knowers of truth have said this, Prahuhu, it has been said by them, and I will now tell you. So why does he call him Kaunteya? So Kunti, the word Kunti means sharp. It is said, that's why in the olden days in the battle, they used to have a rifle, and on the top of the rifle, they have this bayonet, which is sharp. And that was called Kunta. Kunta means sharp. So Kunti means sharp, and she had a very sharp intellect. She was a brilliant woman, very intelligent, very smart. And he's telling Arjuna, you are Kunti's son, so you better be sharp, because this knowledge I'm going to give you is not easy to understand. And so we also have to become alert. They say the 13th and the 15th chapters that will be coming up need a lot of subtle thinking. So in the Kathopanishad, Yamaraja tells Nachiketa, he says this knowledge can be grasped by agraya sukshmaya buddhya. So by a sharp intellect and a subtle intellect. Does anybody know difference between sharp and subtle? Not Neeru, we already talked about it last night. Can anybody else say difference between sharp intellect and subtle intellect? What do you think?
I think that, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think subtle is more pervasive and higher than sharp. Sharp is just in whatever material things or anything, but subtle is even spiritually higher. So I think it's much better to be subtle than just sharp. Sharp could be anybody, even materialistic things.
Yeah, very good answer. Thank you so much. Perfect. She answered it correctly. So sharp intellect is one that knows the world and knows, what the world is and how to function in the world, and also knows what is right and what is wrong, what I should do, what I should not do, what is ill. So you need a sharp intellect for spirituality to know what the world is and what I should and should not do. So sharp intellect. And what is subtle intellect? Subtle intellect is that which knows distinction between real and unreal, sat and asat, existent and non-existent. So the higher knowledge can only be obtained by a person who has a sharp intellect, but more important, you have to have a subtle intellect, which can distinguish between real and unreal. So that's why Bhagavan says you need to have a sharp and subtle intellect. Then the Bhagavad Gita, the first shloka starts with Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. Kshetra, again the word Kshetra is used. Why Kurukshetre? Because that was the land where the Kurus assembled, the Kuru family, which was the Pandavas and the Kauravas. They belonged to the Kuru dynasty, and they assembled for Samaveta Yuyutsuvaha. Dharma kshetre, kurukshetre, samaveta, yuyutsavaha. That's how the first shloka starts. So they had gathered for a war. And we know that there was the Mahabharata war between Pandavas. But why are we studying? Because in us also there is a constant war going on. And what is this war? War is between good and evil. Pandavas and Kauravas are not somebody who fought 5,000 years ago, but within us, there are positive tendencies and negative tendencies. There is tamasic. Say, I have decided I have to get up in the morning to meditate. And tamasic says, come on, yaar, keep on sleeping. Who wants to get up at 5? You know, nobody, even birds are not awake. Why are you awake? Or I decided I want to go to the Gita class, and the Rajas says, Are yaar, wahan kya ja raha hai? Wahan they just talk the same thing every time. Let's go play golf, or let's go watch a movie, or let's watch a football. So tamas and rajas are always ready to negate sattva. So that's why there is a constant battle going on between the good and the bad. And when Bhagavan says idam shariram, the entire Upanishad talks about na iti, not this, not this. So when he says this body, what he means is everything that is this is not me. That's what the Upanishad say. Like this computer. This computer is not me, right? This pen is not me. When I'm in a car, this car is not me. This house is not me. So anything that you can say this is not you. And that's what Bhagavan is telling him. So this shariram, this body is also not you, because we think this body I am, this mind I am, this intellect I am, these vasanas I am. None of it is you. How about this ego? At least ego I am? No, even the ego is this, because I know that this ego, one time I'm happy, one time unhappy, one time successful, one time failure. So anything that you can point with this, na iti, not this, not this. So what Bhagavan is saying, eliminate everything that is this body, this mind, this intellect, this ego, these vasanas. And then what is left, that you are. So that is the teaching of this 13th chapter, idam shariram. Shariram, as I mentioned, one is the body. Because why shariram? Because Sharanat, Shankaracharya ji says, that which will decay and ultimately perish, Kshayanat, Sharanat. That which will decay and perish is body, and we know. And we are all going through that. The body is decaying and soon it will perish. But we have to pay attention to the imperishable. Another meaning of this body is, it is a karma phala experiencer. What does that mean? That whatever actions I am doing, the results of that come in this body. It could be actions in this life, could be actions in past life. Somebody says, why does a 6-month-old child get, leukemia? What has the child done? Well, it is the result of past karmas. But majority of actions of this karma, we get the phala in this life itself. So sharira is the place for karma phala. So if I put good plants, I will get good result, good fruits. If I put bad plants, you will get bad. Surdas ji says it very beautifully. He says, Boya ped babul ka aam kahan se hoye? See, you have put, bitter fruit seed in the ground, and then you are expecting sweet fruit. No, if you put bitter seed, you will get bitter fruit. If you put sweet seed, you will get sweet fruits. So fruits are a result of my action, and it is a direct result. If you put mango seed, you will get mango. If you put lemon, you will get sour lemon. So same way in life, whatever I do, that results in the results, and that is the phalam. So body is the experiencer. So talking about bad things, this man, Tom and Bill, are two friends. So Bill tells Tom, I'm going through a rough time. He said, what happened? He said, my firm declared bankruptcy and I have no money to pay for my college, for my kids' college. Tom says, it could be worse. So he thought maybe he's, giving me support, sympathy. That could be worse. Then next week he says, you know what? My house caught on fire, Bill said. And now my kids, we have no place to stay. Me and my wife and my kids are staying at a friend's house. He says, it could be worse. Could be worse. And then third week he says, now my wife left me also. So now I'm alone taking care of the kids in a friend's house. I have no money. It could be worse, Tom said. So Bill finally catches him by the throat. He says, my bankruptcy, you said could be worse. My house burned down, you said could be worse. My wife left me. How could it be worse? Tom says, it could be worse. It could have happened to me. So it can always be worse. So the point is that good and bad happens because of karmas. And this body is a vehicle to experience karmas. That's why Bhagavan says it is a field where you plant karmas and you get the result. Not only karmas, but even thoughts. If I have a lot of anger and resentment, then that manifests. It manifests as high blood pressure, digestive problems, arthritis. So my thoughts express as physical problems. So the idea in this chapter is that there are three bodies. Shariram does not only mean physical body, but there is the gross body, then there is the subtle body, the mind and intellect, and then there is the causal body. We have just done that in Tattva Bodha. So the gross, subtle, and causal body together cause Shariram, and this whole world is also called Shariram. Bhagavan will talk about that in a subsequent shloka. So from the object, our attention has to go to the subject, to the knower, Ch.13. Who is the knower of this? Not only the knower of this whole world, but who knows my body, who knows my mind, who knows my desires, who knows this ego. So from the object, you have to shift your attention to the subject. And so that is what this 13th chapter will all tell us about the subject, not about the objects. Objects we know plenty, through the internet, through computers, through, telescope, microscope. We know everything. Our eyes can see the world, but very few people turn attention to who am I, the subject. That's why they say, Pehle aap pehchano re sadho. Pehle aap pehchano, bina aap chinhe par brahm ko kaun kahe main jano. You have to know yourself. Yourself does not mean I as Anil or Rajiv or Saroj, but I as that Atma, that spirit, that consciousness. So that is the essence of the first shloka, where Bhagavan says that this Sharira is the Kshetra, and one who knows it, this Sharira is called the Kshetragnya. So we'll do the third shloka today. Bhagavan will continue. Now he will tell us a little about who is the Kshetragnya. Kshetra he will talk about also later on, but he will talk about Kshetragnya. Kusum can please unmute. Shloka number 3. Kshetragnyam chapi mam vidhi.
Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi.
Sarva kshetreshu bharata.
Sarva kshetreshu bharata.
Kshetragnayor jnanam.
Kshetragyayo jnanam.
Yattat jnanam matam mama.
Yatchat jnanam matam pama.
Together. Kshetragnyam chapi mam vidhi. Sarva kshetreshu bharata. Kshetragnayor jnanam. Yattat jnanam matam mama. So now, Bhagavan, we always think, who is the knower of the field? I am, right? I know my body. I know my mind. I know my thoughts. I know the world. I can see sky, earth, moon, space, all that. No, Bhagavan says, Kshetrajnam cha api. Know me also. Mam vidhi. Kshetrajna. I am also the knower. In fact, I alone am the knower. Bhagavan will say that later on. But he says, don't think only you are the knower. I am also the knower. But I am not only knower of you and your thoughts, your emotions, but sarva kshetreshu, in all fields. Kshetreshu is the seventh case, plural. So he says, in all fields, I am the knower. So of all fields, that means anything that you can think of, whether you can see it or not, or whether it is in heaven, or whether it is in hell, whether it's in some far off galaxy, I am the knower of all the 14 worlds. Sarva Kshetreshu, O Bharata. Now, Bharata is a very beautiful word. Arjuna is called Bharata. Bha means knowledge, also means light, but here it means knowledge, the light of knowledge. Rata means one who is always engaged in. So he's praising Arjuna that you are engaged in the pursuit of knowledge. You are asking me these questions. That's why I am giving you the answer. So same way we should also say, I am also Bharata. I am engaged in the pursuit of knowledge and I wish to know this truth. That's why I'm listening to the Bhagavad Gita, not because I have nothing to do Sunday morning to chalo, computer on kar lo. No, I want to know this knowledge so I may improve. So Bharata, he says, know me as the knower in all fields, and kshetrajna, kshetrajnyo, of the sixth case of the dual of kshetra and kshetrajna, jnanam, the knowledge. Yat tat jnanam, that alone is knowledge. Matam mama is my opinion. So Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, what we do, we only think as long as I know about the world, I know about stock market, I know how to make money, that's enough. Or kya hai zindagi mein? Or maybe I know the latest movie, or no, he says that alone is not enough. You have to know both kshetra and kshetrajna. That alone is knowledge. That is my opinion. So knowing the world is not enough. Know the world and also know me. Bhagavan says, know me as your true nature. So we said all fields we already talked about, everything, all animals, birds, plants, field, everything, all fields. Know me also. That means I am actually the knower of all fields. In fact, ultimately Bhagavan will say, I alone am. This whole world is just a dream, just as when I go to sleep, Gurudev in his commentary says, when I go to sleep, I create the dream world. When I wake up, I say, oh, the world was only in my waking mind, which was asleep. So similarly, this universe is in the cosmic mind. Right now, we think the universe is real, just as a dreamer considers real. But for a wise person, enlightened person, he sees this whole world as a dream in the cosmic mind. You and I, we are still so much caught up in the truth of this world that we don't see that which is beyond this world. And that's what Bhagavan says. I am beyond everything. Not only this whole world comes from me, I am the knower of it. I am the creator of it. I am the sustainer of it. The world dissolves in me, but I am beyond all this. I am even beyond Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. I am beyond all the Devis and Devtas. When Bhagavan says I, what Bhagavan is saying, I, that total consciousness, Brahman, which is beyond even the creator and the created. So that I am. So we say, Bhagavan, if you are me, you say you are me, right? Say, yeah, Bhagavan says, I am you and you are me. He said, then you must be suffering. Why? Because in life, I have so many problems. Sometimes I am happy, sometimes I am unhappy. So you also get happy and unhappy. Sometimes things are going well. Sometimes things are going unwell. Sometimes I'm laughing. Sometimes I'm crying. Bhagavan, are you also laughing and crying, right? If Bhagavan says, I am you, then all my experiences should be Bhagavan's experiences. So, and not only that, but there are so many fields, right? There is 7 billion humans. So you mean there are 7 billion knowers, and then and then humans are only a small part. Then there are insects and birds and plants. So Bhagavan, are you divided among so many knowers, billions and billions and billions of knowers? Are all you are divided? Bhagavan says, no, I am partless. He says, if you are partless, then how can you be in all of us? How can you be in everything? And you say, I am the knower of everything. So A, you must be going through joys and sorrows. B, you must be divided. So that will be answered in detail. But what Bhagavan is saying is, I am partless. But we are talking from our ignorant understanding. See, we are talking from ignorance and Bhagavan is talking from knowledge. So there is a big difference when Bhagavan says, I am the knower in all fields and me the knower. See, my knower is what? I know my little world. I know my body. I know my family. I know maybe my town. And I know a little bit about, my profession. And that's it. And even profession, I don't know anything. Like I'm a doctor and they'll say, I know gastroenterology, but do you know cardiology? No. Do you know infection? Even in medicine, we don't know everything. Or an engineer, he'll say, I'm a civil engineer. I don't know anything about mechanical or electric. So our knowledge is so limited, but Bhagavan is talking from totality. That is what the knowledge is. That is true knowledge, where he is the knower of everything and cannot be divided. One existence, one consciousness appears as this whole universe, and as existence it appears, and as consciousness it is knower. So the existence and the consciousness are both Brahman, and this world exists and is known, right? I exist and I know I exist. So that existence and consciousness is Brahman, and Ananda is because it is infinite. So that's why Sat, Chit, Anand, existence, consciousness, and bliss. And yattat jnanam matam mama, that alone is to be known. And so how, Bhagavan, how do you say that? So they say, well, Kena Upanishad says that. Kena Upanishad says that very clearly. He says, if you have taken this trip, right, on this earth, you came in a human body and you spent 60, 70, 80, 90 years, chalo 100 years. And you did not know the truth, the reality, your trip is wasted. You have wasted your time. You have come on this earth and spent 60, 70, 80 years. And if you have not known me, Bhagavan says, not known me means not attained oneness with the truth. One is knowing intellectually, but experiencing oneness, if you have not done that, then your trip is wasted. You might as well have not been taken birth, because if you have taken birth and if you have not reached that state, but point is not, maybe not everybody will reach enlightenment, but at least if I have at least progressed on the path and understood that there is more to this world than what I can see, and that is what I need to know. So as long as I have understood that there is more than this world, that is the spirit, I need to know it and reach it, then you have progressed on the spiritual journey. You may not have reached, and Bhagavan in the 6th chapter says, you will continue that, your journey will continue. But knowing that there is something more than what is ordinarily known by the senses, by the mind, by the intellect, is what is true knowledge. Yat tat jnanam matam mama. Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, it is my opinion that that alone is important. Everything else is okay. To function in the world, you need to have all this knowledge. You need to be smart. But to make your journey worthwhile, you have to know not only Kshetra, but Kshetrajna. And Kshetrajna not as me, but as that infinite reality. Bhagavan Shri Krishna identifies with that when he says, I, Mam Vidhi, means I, that supreme self. And what is the benefit of knowing this? Why should I know it? Why should I know this knowledge? You are saying it is worth knowing. What am I going to get out of it? So there are many benefits, but two main benefits we can talk about. One is freedom from sorrow. Because everybody wants freedom from sorrow, right? Does anybody want to be sorrowful? No, nobody wants sorrow. And whatever we do is freedom from sorrow. Even eating, I am hungry, and that is sorrow. So I go and have a, burrito or a pizza or a chapati. Why? Because that sorrow of hunger should be removed. Similarly, we have physical sorrows. I am ill, I'm sick, I'm not well. So I go to the doctor and take medicine. That is relief from physical sorrow. Emotional sorrow I have. I'm lonely. So then I reach out to somebody and, look for love, compassion, sharing. Emotional sorrow. Intellectual ignorance I have. I reach out to get more knowledge, go on the internet. But the greatest sorrow is thinking I am this body, mind, intellect, ego. And that sorrow can only be removed by knowledge. Ignorance can only be removed by knowledge, cannot be removed by any other means. So knowing I am that spirit occupying this body will give me freedom from sorrow. Then whatever is happening to the body is not happening to me. So I'm in the dentist's office and the dentist is injecting, xylocaine. All of us have been through that. One is you can say, oh, I'm hurting. Or other thing is I am Brahman. I am this body, not this body. And so what is happening is not happening to me. So once you are able to dissociate, then whatever physical, emotional, intellectual sorrows are coming, they are not coming to me. They are coming to this body or to this mind or to this intellect or to this ego. Sometimes I feel insulted. Somebody insulted me. You say, who got hurt? My ego got hurt. But I am not the ego. So when you want relief from physical, mental, intellectual, or emotional sorrows, or even the sorrows of the ego, reminding yourself that I am not any of those. I am not that is known. I am the knower. I am not the Nayam, but I am the one that is to know everything. I am the knower of that. So Nayam, that I have to understand, and that I am. And the second benefit of it is see the oneness. Because if I am a creation of God in the path of bhakti, everybody is a creation of God. Just as Bhagavan Sri Krishna made me, he made everybody else. Just as the Father in heaven made me, everybody. So seeing that oneness in all, and not only that, but everything is that and that alone. So understanding that one Brahman has appeared in all these various forms, in all these various ways, and whatever I am seeing is an expression of consciousness. And then ultimately, as Swami teachers say, that is me, that I have to understand, that this world is all me, is not separate from me. I alone am expressing, not I as Anil, but I as this consciousness is expressing in this whole universe. So I have to shift my attention from the world to the spirit, and that spirit is me, and I am not separate from this world. So then what happens? I develop love, compassion. That's why in the last chapter we heard Adveshta Sarva Bhutanam Maitra Karuna Evacha Nirmamo Nirahankara Sama Dukkha Sukha Kshami. So he says, my devotee does not hate anybody, but is loving, compassionate, and forgiving. That can only come when I see the oneness. So this knowledge tells us that there is the field, the knower of the field, and then there is something beyond, which Bhagavan will talk in more detail in the subsequent shlokas. So here we end today. We have a few minutes. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Anything to add? Yeah, Carrie, go ahead.
I was thinking about the little boy that maybe came home from school and he said, oh, mother, a little girl in my class, Sita, she told me that about God. And of course, the mother laughed. Oh, there is no God. That's silly. And then, the little boy grew up and he became a doctor. And the mother still laughed and said, oh, I go to my son, the cardiologist, but, he still believes in God. One of the problems with our society, and Nietzsche said it back in the 1800s. In the 19th century, God is dead and we will never wash the blood from our hands.
Right.
And that has really become very true. All over the world now, people believe that humanity, that we humans, the Ch.13, can understand. We believe that the Ch.13 is the knower, and that's all over the world now. And look at the blood that's been spilled from that. I mean,
Right.
all these wars, World War I, World War II, and it goes on, and it's becoming no worse. We're becoming tribal in all our beliefs. We really aren't getting along. It's getting worse, I think. And now we worry all the time. We're afraid because people no longer say, well, give it to God. We don't say that anymore. So it's really good that there are some people like yourself that are trying to spread the knowledge of the knower.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, that's a very good comment. Atheism is increasing throughout the world. More and more people call themselves atheistic. People are not going to churches, temples, gurudwaras. All the attendance is going down because people feel that they don't need God. We are God. We can create anything. We can do anything. We can go to space. But as I said, to function in the world is okay. But when problems come, when all your science and your technology is not able to handle these worldly, that's why I said for her to go to the temple, she didn't need to know the earth was flat or round. But when you need higher knowledge of space and weather and all, then you need to know earth is round. So similarly, the worldly problems can only be solved up to so much extent. But when you find that, we find millionaires and billionaires committing suicide. They have everything they want. They have a big house and a pool and all whatever comfort they want. And yet they are unhappy. They are going through divorce. They're going through suicide. They are on drugs, sleeping pills. All those things show that happiness ultimately is only within. It cannot be in objects. So thank you. That's a very good point. People are less believing in God now than they used to. Yeah, Lata, go ahead.
When you refer kshetra is the body, mind, and intellect at individual level. And kshetrajna, what I need to know is my jiva, and then translate it to on a bigger level to infinite reality. Is that
Yes.
the essence was?
Right. So the essence is that we think the knower is this jiva, this mind and intellect knows. Yes, at the ego level, yes, I am the knower of my world. I'm the knower of my body, my mind, my emotions, and this world. But I am of limited alpagnya. That's why in Tattva Bodh they talk about alpagnya and sarvagnya. Alpagnya means I have a limited knowledge.
Yeah.
I only know my world and my, this and that. But so that knower that is all we know. But Bhagavan says, I am the ultimate knower, where I even know your ego. See, my ego or my mind and intellect is the knower of my world. But Bhagavan says, actually, that also is an object of me. So when I understand I am the spirit, then even this ego and mind and intellect become an object. Because I know what is happening in my mind. I am upset, or my intellect, or what is happening to my ego. So you have to shift your attention from the limited knower to the ultimate knower, from the object to the subject. And that ultimate knower is Bhagavan. That's why he says, Kshetrajñam chapi mam vidhi. Know me as the ultimate knower of everything, not only of this world, but all the worlds, all 14 worlds.
Okay.
So, and that is me. So the identity of me and that, aham, that's why even in Tattva Bodh, in Vivek Chudamani, in Dakshinamurti, we are all talking about that. The oneness between me and that. We'll talk, next week I can talk a little more about Tattvamasi, which is this particular shloka, the third shloka is Tattvamasi, that thou art, we'll talk a little more about that, how I can be that. So
Okay. Okay.
we'll talk.
Hari Om. No, I think that the reason people are sorrowful is because they think what they see is the world. There is nothing beyond this, right? To them, if they accomplish anything that they desire in this world, then that is it. That is the to overall satisfaction. That is the life. So that's why I think there's more atheists are being created because people have become self-centered, and it's just everything is getting smaller. Like they said, the world's getting smaller. They literally think that this is it. They don't see anything beyond that. So they don't see any point even knowing, having this knowledge, because if they're happy with their family and their possessions, that's good enough, I think.
Right. Thank you. That's good. Thank you. Anything else? Anybody would like to add? Any question? Okay, so I'll just talk a couple of minutes about CVV, about knowledge. And, we all are interested in the pursuit of knowledge, Bharata, pursuit of knowledge. So there is a very beautiful institution coming up in South India called CVV, the Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyalaya, which is a very, very going to be a tremendously beneficial institution for mankind. And, they say that giving to education is the highest giving, because it's not only like you give somebody food, it's okay. But if you teach somebody, then that teaching will stay with him throughout life. So this institution is going to combine Eastern and Western. So there will be Western knowledge, all science, mathematics, everything, along with the Eastern values and culture, and our Sanskrit will be taught there, and all the Vedas, Upanishads. So it's going to be a very, very beautiful institution. It's a huge project. And I think the end result of that will be a world-class institution, which will be a great combination of East and West. And we are fortunate that such an institution is coming up in our lifetime, which will benefit people for centuries, forever. Because once a university comes up, it will stay for a long, long time. So they are doing fundraising for that between now and October 15th. So if, every person, whatever we earn, at least they say a part of it should be given for dhanam, for charity. So if you are thinking of a charitable cause, this is the most wonderful cause to give. And whatever amount we give will be helpful or beneficial. And a lot of you have very generously donated to this cause, and we are very thankful to you. But if anybody else would like to donate, after this talk, I'm going to put the site where you can offer your donations. You can donate by credit card or check, or by, from your checking account, ATM, whatever. It is very easy to donate. It's very user-friendly, the site. So, or if you wish to even give me a check, I can forward. But if you make a donation, please put CM Bakersfield, Chinmaya Mission Bakersfield on that, so that the Chinmaya Mission Center will get credit. We have donated quite a bit. And the more we give, the more this will help, not only now, but this gift will keep on giving. So it's a wonderful cause. So if you wish to participate, I'll put the site on after this talk. Those of you who are on the Gita WhatsApp will get it. Or if you have any questions, you can call me or send me the check and we can forward it. Whatever works for you is the best. So please think of that. It's one of the best things you can do, because in Bhagavad Gita, they say karma yoga, giving unselfishly without expecting anything. So this is the best example of whatever we have studied in the Gita to put into practice if we can support this cause. Thank you all very much for participating and for your questions.
न तत्र सूर्यो न भाति न चन्द्रतारकं नेमा विद्युतो भाति कुतो मयग्निः तमेव भान्तमनुभान्ति सर्वं तस्य भाषा सर्वमिदं विभाति आरति श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की दिव्य रूप मूर्ति करुणा की आरती सद्गुरु की चरणों में उनकी शांति समाए शरणागत की भांति मिटाए आप ताप संताप जय की आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की आरती सद्गुरु की वेद उपनिषद गीता को गाया धर्म सनातन फिर से जगाया शुद्ध नीति प्रीति शंकर की आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की आरती सद्गुरु की पहाड़ी की तपोभूमि में नित्य विराजे गुरु हमारे भक्त हृदयानंद स्रोत की आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की आरती सद्गुरु की आरती सद्गुरु की कपूर गौरम करुणावतारम संसार सारम भुजगेन्द्रहारम सदा वसंतं हृदयारविंदे भवं भवानी सहितं नमामि मंगलं भगवान् विष्णु मंगलं गरुडाध्वज मंगलं पुंडरीकाक्षो मंगलाय तनो हरि सर्वमंगल मांगल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थ साधिके शरण्ये त्र्यंबके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते नारायणी नमोस्तुते
बोलिए श्री कृष्ण चंद्र भगवान की जय। श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। चंडू कायेन वाचा
कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मवा मा प्रकृते स्वभावः करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।